Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to the Piccolilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Week 1's in the books, and it's time to look at these Week 2 matchups. I am your host, JB, the Fantasy Phenom, and with me tonight is fantasy veteran Steve Wynn. I affectionately call him the Professor. Hey, Professor, we got a jam-packed show tonight. We'll cover some news, some injuries around the NFL, some last-minute waiver wire pickups, and then we'll get into the Week 2 fantasy matchups.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Cool. And just to let everybody know, all our listeners out there, we have a little contest going on called Beat the Commish, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But I'd like everybody to be aware of it and to please participate. Chance to not only have a little bragging rights about beating our commissioner, but you can also win a few bucks in the process. So.
Yeah, we've teamed up with Fantasy Player Exchange, and the commission is going to take on our listeners every Sunday in this fantasy game that Fantasy Player Exchange hosts. We're going to have Victor on later in the show to give us a little bit more information about the game. They call the game Beat the Commish, and frankly, if you beat him, you can call him the Pinata instead of the Commish for the rest of the week. So, and you can win some money. So. It's good stuff. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, just to let everybody know, our phone lines are open, and you can call in. We'll answer any of your lineup concerns or questions at 347-539-5402. And as a matter of fact, we have a caller. We have Jersey in the house with us tonight. He's a faithful listener, and I'd like to welcome him to the show. Hey, Jersey. How you doing?
Hey, guys, real good. Good evening. I just got a quick question here. It's in my PPR league. The guy I'm playing has Stafford. Not always do you have to play a receiver that may be against a quarterback that you're going against. But my dilemma is normally I go Cruz and Jennings. Jennings could be doubtful, looks like tomorrow. On my bench, I have Titus Young and I have Kenny Britt. Kenny Britt I want to keep because I think he has potential going forward down the road. But an option is, do I keep Titus Young in the PPR league to go against the guy that has Stafford, or does that not matter and take Malcolm Floyd off the waiver wire and draft Titus Young?
Well, I can say with authority as somebody who owns Titus Young that you can drop Titus Young at this point. At least for the foreseeable future, Nate Burleson is still a going concern. I got Malcolm Floyd ranked at number 25 overall in their game against Tennessee. Tennessee is not great against the pass. I think that's a great pickup. So if Jennings is on the shelf, we'll watch the injury report on Sunday. But dropping Malcolm Floyd in there, you'll be pretty happy with the results, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's my main thing. Cause it looks like him and Gates are the two number one guys there with VJax out. So, like I said, after Titus Young headbutted the guy, I think he might be in his coach's doghouse. So, again, I'm not trying to read a lot into something, but that's why I figured I'd ask you guys. You guys have the knowledge and stuff to try to keep me flying for another chance.
Yeah, it's a good week to try and use Floyd, and you have to think that Rivers will get that offense into the end zone more than once this Sunday. So I think that's a great pickup.
Fine, I'll do that because I got Matthews. I got him on the shelf, so I've been going with Ridley and Forte, and I've even been keeping Michael Bush on the bench, although I played him in my other league because I benched Richardson. So, like
you might want to get Bush in that lineup. It looks like he's going to definitely be the goal line carrier there, and there's a little bit of talk of they want to get both those guys up to the 1,000-yard rushers this season. So Bush is definitely going to be worth a flex play. I'm going to say almost all season.
Yep.
Okay.
And you'll hear a little bit on Ryan Matthews in the injury report section. So keep listening. We've got a little nugget of information for you.
Should I wait for Ryan Matthews until he plays a game and still go with Ridley? I mean, wait till he plays a full game before I would start him, or what's your opinion on it?
Well, Ridley's a good start. I wouldn't bench Ridley, but Matthews. I guess we'll spoil the surprise. There's a rumor going around San Diego that Ryan Matthews will be back for week 2. Keep your eyes on the news out of the Chargers practice reports later in the week. But if Ryan Matthews is taking contact on Thursday and Friday, he gets back to being a good play. It doesn't sound like you're as desperate at running back as you are at wide receiver. Keep playing Stephen Ridley, but Matthews could be back this week.
And put it this way, and the guys that are paying his multi-million-dollar salary, if they're confident enough to put him in and let him play, then I don't know the size of your league, but for the $100, $200, or $300 buy-in for your fantasy league, it's money well spent. Like I said, if they're going to invest $5 million in this guy and let him back on the field, you should feel confident doing the same.
Okay.
Well, we got
a
jam-packed show,
14 really.
So,
thank you, guys. I appreciate your help. Thanks a lot. Good luck. Take care.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the call. Just to remind everybody, yes, the phone lines are open, and please do call in. Just like Jersey, he's a long-time listener, and we appreciate his patronage. But back to the show here. We're gonna get into the injury section of the show now, Professor, and that's brought to us by Distinctive Car Toys of South Jersey's premier auto and customizing shop. Car Toys, they add toys to your car. And a few players that look like they'll definitely be out for fantasy this week. Starting off with, I'll let you start it off.
Okay, well, Fred Jackson is out for 4 weeks. He's got an LCL sprain. That is something that you can come back from. It's not as bad as ACL or MCL, so 4 weeks here.
Okay, and it looks like David Nelson for Buffalo, wide receiver. He does have an ACL tear, and it looks like he's likely out for the season.
Yeah, his season is done. Wide receiver Devery Henderson on the Saints had a concussion last week. Nothing definite yet, but the NFL is trying to be careful here. He is likely out for week 2.
Yeah, same can be said for that running back in Miami, Daniel Thomas, a little concussion, and he's likely going to be out for a week 2 as well.
Okay. Well, those guys are on a lot of rosters, so make sure you have them on your bench. This next set of guys, they're people that you need to keep an eye on. Watch the injury reports up to Sunday for John Skelton. He had a knee injury. It's probable that he will not be back this week. Kevin Cobb will have the rock at least for one more opportunity.
And Jonathan Stewart's another guy you want to keep an eye on. That ankle, it's uncertain, but they're saying there's a chance he may be back, so you may want to keep an eye. Again, look at see if he's practicing on Thursday and Friday.
And that running game was terrible without him, so Carolina wants him back. I mentioned Ryan Matthews earlier. Also, Austin Collie has a concussion. He's had that one for a while. Word is that he may play this week, so that's one to watch on Sunday and get him in your lineup. Andrew Luck does know where he's throwing the ball.
Yeah, Rashard Jennings looks like he may be uncertain for week 2, but I don't know if he's much of a concern after what Maurice Jones-Drew. He came back and he stepped right in week 1. It looks like he took his job back anyway. So
yeah, looked like his old self. No rust on him, unlike Chris Johnson, who still has rust from his holdout last year.
Absolutely.
And the last guy on the keep an eye out is Jeremy Maclin. Took a hip pointer. He's uncertain for week 2. This one's up in the air right now. I'm dying to find out what's going on because I've got him on my team.
Cool. And a couple of guys that were a little bit dinged up, but it looks like they're going to be set to play. Starting with Jake Locker. He hurt his shoulder. He got hit pretty hard at the after halftime in that game, but it looks like he'll be playing in week 2.
Yeah, he was a prospect to play safety as well as quarterback when he came into college. So he's one of those guys. He dislocates his shoulder, he'll just pop it back in. No problem. Get right back in the game.
Keep on trucking.
Pierre Garçon thought he broke his foot and still went back into the game. Was taken out later in the game, replaced by Aldrich Robinson. But his X-ray was okay this week, and he will be back in the lineup on Sunday.
All right, and another game that we spoke about with Jersey, Nate Washington for Tennessee. Looks like he just had a little banged-up leg, but looks like he'll be playing. So, and, with Kenny Britt coming back, it'll be interesting to see, how often they are looking his way anyway. But Nate Washington should be good to go. All right. The news and injuries were brought to you by Distinctive Car Toys. You can find them on the web at Distinctive Car Toys. That's with a Z.com. Get your car fully customized, anything from keyless remote to a full car customization. Easy for me to say. Oh, but when we do come back, the phone lines will be open, 347-539-5402. And we'll give you all those last-minute waiver wire pickups you should be looking at. And remember, you're listening to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the professor,
and me, the commish, along with fantasy insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. That's PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. Enter promo code ESPN to get 10% off.
Welcome back to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm going to open up the phone lines if you need any help from me or the professor here for your Week 2 games. Reminder that our phone number is 347-539-5402. All right, Professor, let's anybody out there on the waiver wire that people should be looking for?
You know what? I do want to say there were some great ones, and I hope you got out to the site earlier in the week and were able to grab them. But C.J. Spiller, Kevin Ogletree, Alfred Morris, Brandon LaFell, Stephen Hill, and Dennis Pitta are gone. They are rostered in about 95% of leagues or higher. If they're not rostered in your league, please enjoy your 6-team league. But
nice.
we've got to go a little deeper. So who you got first?
Well, wide receiver Ashland Jeffrey. He had a touchdown and 80 yards receiving, and if you didn't draft him, he's worth a pickup because the Bears' passing offense, they look pretty good this year.
Yeah, I'm liking Jay Cutler a lot, and it's because of those receivers. Another guy playing tomorrow night, Randall Cobb, 9 receptions, 77 yards. On his receiving stat line, there's no touchdown, but he did get one in the return game. They are using him in a Darren Sproles sort of role, and he is a very, very solid flex. If your league gives you return yards or return touchdowns, he must be on your team. And 9 targets for a guy who plays wide receiver out of the backfield, huge for PPR.
Sure, and being a Pittsburgh fan, I have to throw out there that last week, Big Ben was throwing the ball a lot towards Heath Miller. He targeted him 7 times last week. A touchdown. So he's definitely using the big guy to get out of trouble. Now I don't know if it was just a little knocking off the preseason rust and was leaning on him a little bit or not. But without it was good to see him using the big guy, and hopefully that continues. And I know he probably wasn't drafted in most formats.
No, he wasn't, and I got to tell you, it looked like they were looking at him. It's not like he was the check down. They had plays designed to go his way, so I don't know if it was a weakness in the defense that they were playing or part of their overall game plan, but I like Heath Miller as one of the few guys that moves up as a startable tight end. The other one is Kyle Rudolph. Christian Ponder looks good. Kyle Rudolph had 5 catches, 67 yards. He is a prototype guy. On the bench, injured last year. So expect more of the same, low-end starting tight end numbers. If you got somebody who stinks, replace him with Rudolph. He's got some upside.
Sure. Now, how about wide receiver Brandon Gibson? He had 51 yards and a touch, and it looks like he'll have some value in their passing game. I don't know if he's quite the fantasy starter yet, but wouldn't it be a good, guy to stash away on your bench, and when the bye week troubles come, a nice guy that you may be able to plug in from time to time.
Yeah. Well, the next guy that I've got, if you're a person who rolls the dice and changes their defense every week, Cincinnati Bengals face the turnover machine Brandon Whedon next week. If you have a rock-solid stud defense, don't worry about it. But if you're playing the defense roulette, get the Bengals and start them.
Sure.
And these next players, they're marginal adds. If you got a deep bench, if you've got a roster that's a little larger than normal, or if you've got a 14-team league, or you're looking for some prospects, we got a few more guys for you to take a look at a little deeper on the waiver wire.
You mean people like maybe like a no-show Marino? It looks like he's firmly behind McGahee, but he had some opportunities at the goal line, and there's not a lot out there for waiver wire out there for running back, so.
Yeah, it was a pretty thin week once C.J. Spiller was gone, so I think that Noshan's not a bad pickup. Last year, this guy was a running back. This year, he's a wide receiver. He's lining up all over the place like Randall Cobb, too. Dexter McCluster on the Chiefs. He's got good hands. He's a speedy target. Think of him as a poor man's Wes Welker, and he's getting passes thrown to him by a poor man's Tom Brady. He's a solid pickup for PPR. Hey, he's a great pickup for PPR. So, and if you're on a site like ESPN that still lists him as a running back and you need a guy to drop into that spot in your PPR, go get him. He's a great pickup at running back.
Absolutely. And what about wide receiver Aldrick Robinson? He was targeted the most last week from RG3, and he's definitely going to be out there on your wager wire. But I'd like to see the Skins. I'd like to see a little bit more out of them before I start going crazy picking up all their receivers.
Yeah, he's an intriguing pickup. He did get most of his production while Garcon was working through his foot injury. So take a look at him though, because if that offense comes on fire, he's a good pickup. Another wide receiver. It seems like there were a lot of them last week. Rod Streeter in the Monday night game. He's a good receiver. He's a fast guy. He's a popular target for Carson Palmer. As long as the rest of the Raiders wide receivers are all dinged up, and I think everybody but Darius Hayward-Bay is, the Raiders are committed to using the Temple rookie.
Sure. And tight end Martellus Bennett, with all the wide receivers having a case of the drops, Bennett was solid tight end in week 1. That won't always happen, so for now he's in this category.
Okay, and guys, I want to remind you the best place to watch football, no matter what team you follow, is the Piccalilli Inn on Route 206 in Chemung, New Jersey. The Pick has your game up on the screen. They have great wings, and they have ice-cold beer.
Yeah, they certainly do, man, and it is a wonderful place to go and get out there and watch it, especially if you're down here in this area. And if not, I think it's a destination spot now. I think anybody within our listening area, whether it be the East Coast, West Coast, North, or South, I think they should fly into Jersey just to come in and taste these wings. They're that good.
They are very good wings. They're definitely the best wings in South Jersey, so come on out or come back.
Well, stop on in or stop back. Well, when we come back, we're going to keep our phone lines open, 347-539-5402, and call us if you have any player or matchup questions. And remember, you are listening to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the professor,
and me, the commish, along with fantasy insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at prestigesportsmktg.com. That's prestigesportsmktg.com. Enter promo code ESPN and get 10% off.
Welcome back to the Pick-A-Lilly-In Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. The phone lines are open. If you need any help with your teams, please do give us a call, 347-539-5402. And, Professor, let's go into the Week 2 fantasy matchups brought to you by Fantasy Player Exchange. They play daily multi-sport fantasy against your friends for as little as $2 by picking up 5 players on any sport and compete for cash at fantasyplayerexchange.com. All right.
Okay, well, we've got a couple games lined up as our games of the week. In fact, there's 4 A-quality games out there for you. We're going to start with the 2 that are played on Sunday. So 1 o'clock to start off your football day, you've got the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Philadelphia to play against the Eagles. Both of these teams won last week. The Ravens in convincing fashion. The Eagles, not so much. So, who do you like in the rushing game on both sides of this ball there?
Well, I mean, the obvious starts. You got a must start on both sides of the ball. You've got to start LaShawn McCoy. You've got to start Ray Rice. I mean, they're both solid guys. They were, you're talking 2 top 5 overall picks in 90% of the draft. So those guys, you're not even going to question it. You're getting them up into the lineup. Now, as far as the receivers, I mean, I guess on the Baltimore side, the Philly side, you have to start everybody, right? I mean, you're starting Macklin, you're starting Deshaun Jackson, you're starting these guys. My question is, I'm going to throw this to you, knowing that you're kind of the Baltimore fan. Who do you like catching the ball wearing purple?
Well, it's tough. And I have Torrey Smith in a couple leagues. Love him this year. Benched him this week because he's going to have Nnamdi Asomugha on him. And that kind of matchup is rough on a sink or swim prospect like Torrey Smith. Watch him go off for 2 touchdowns and 110 yards and break loose since I'm benching him. But it's a tough matchup for both passing games, and Smith is really the only guy you think about starting. On the tight end front, however, Dennis Pitta, a guy who was a popular waiver wire pickup this week, he might be startable against the Eagles' defense. The tight end is one of those spots that is still exploitable, so you might want to take a look at him. Other than that,
you mean Philly hasn't fixed their linebacker problem yet?
They have. D'Amico Ryan certainly is a huge upgrade, but they still have they allowed a little production last week. you have to think that Dennis Pitta, who got the most targets from the Ravens, is startable in most scoring formats. So, it's a tough one. This is really it's going to be a great game to watch, but it's not going to be a great game to watch for your fantasy players because it's two of the top 3 passing defenses in the league. And, the Baltimore run defense is one of the top 3 run defenses in the league. So if you got LaShawn McCoy, and I do, I'm going to be watching him and praying that he breaks one open. But those Ravens are stingy, and the Eagles did not look crisp last week.
Yeah, this has all the makings for one of those weird 12-9 games, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think it'll be that bad, but don't expect 48 points out of the Ravens. And on the flip side, don't expect 5 turnovers out of the Eagles either. So it's a tough one, but you got to start your studs, and there are a lot of studs in this game. I wouldn't start Joe Flacco in this game either, to be honest. Although he had a nice day last week, he's got to be somebody that's got to stay on the bench for now.
Well, yeah, especially against this defense. And, yeah, I really do think it's going to be one of those low-scoring affairs. But you're right, as far as good football to watch, it's going to be one of the better games to watch this weekend.
Sure.
Another one of our games of the weeks, or so to speak. What do you think of that Detroit-San Francisco matchup?
This is the irresistible force against the immovable object. Detroit's offense, despite a couple road speed bumps last week, some roadblocks, they are about, the 3rd highest powered offense in the league, and they face the number 1 defense in the San Francisco 49ers, who really put the chains on Green Bay last week, and they are, along with New England, among the best offenses in the league. So it's a tough day at the office for Stafford and Johnson, but you have to start them both. And you have to cross your fingers and hope that the Niners let them score. But I got the Niners winning this thing, and this one is a 2017 sort of fashion. Not a lot of scoring there.
Yeah, this is going to be another hard-hitting affair by all means. Absolutely. Who do you like? Frank Gore. Is he going to be losing much time to Kendall Hunter? I mean, last week they weren't exactly split, but I think it was like a 15-10 carry ratio, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kendall Hunter will get more opportunities. Frank Gore is getting old. But Frank Gore proved that he's still got something left in the tank last week. Detroit's defense is significantly better than the Packers. You have to expect Gore to be having a good day, but I don't know if you can expect as good a day as he had last week. Expect him to be startable, but low-end running back 2 kind of quality. And on the other side of the ball, I don't know what to make of it. Kevin Smith looks like the second coming of Jim Brown every once in a while, but he's fragile as peanut brittle. So tough to call, but he's another guy that you have to start regardless of the matchup.
Sure, they just cannot find a durable back. I mean, they've got guys with talent, but it just seemed to always be an injury problem. And my God, man, Detroit really needs to shore up that running game. That's for sure.
Yeah, the big matchup though is the Detroit receivers, Calvin Johnson against that San Francisco set of cornerbacks, and you have to wonder how Michael Crabtree and the rest of the wide receivers will perform. I don't really see a whole lot out of Randy Moss. You think Randy Moss is startable this week?
I don't know if he's quite startable yet, but I've never really loved the San Francisco passing game. Well, not unless you go back to Joe Montana days or Steve Young days. But yeah, I don't know. They seem to have a carousel of receivers that go through there. Michael Crabtree was going to be the next coming, and then that's I don't know. It's been a carousel, and now they're adding Randy Moss. I really thought they were putting him out there sort of as a decoy maybe until he caught 4 balls and a touchdown. So who knows? Maybe they are going to really try to utilize him for what the skill set that he has, and maybe he can start stretching the field again.
Yeah, well, we've got our those are our 2 big games of the week, and I think you do have to start both of those defenses too. A little less heralded game of the week. Are we facing each other in week 2 in the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football League this week?
I do believe we are.
No, it's the following week. You're not yet. No, it's not quite you
week
yet.
3. Okay, yeah. See, we're looking forward. It's like one of those trap games, So this is a week where we may fall a little short because we're already looking ahead to week 3. Don't fall into those traps. Stay vigilant, my friend. Stay vigilant.
What
I want to do is what's that?
No,
I was going to say let's go through some of the little bit less heralded games this week. There's a couple of 1:00 games that I don't think are going to produce much fanfare. I'd like to get through them, and when we do, I want to come back, and it looks like we're going to have Victor from the Fantasy Player Exchange. He's going to be joining us after the other side of the commercial break. So let's try to touch on some of these games that probably aren't going to produce too much as far as fantasy-wise. Like, for instance, Kansas City at Buffalo.
Okay, well, there's sometimes you have to look at your TV provider, and if you don't have DirecTV, it's games like Kansas City at Buffalo that should remind you of why you should be happy you don't have DirecTV, because you don't have to watch this game. Kansas City, really, there's nothing exciting from a fantasy perspective. Dwayne Bowe is a starter, but no great shakes. Dexter McCluster was an interesting pickup last week. Let's see if he remains PPR gold. But nothing worth taking a look at there. And Buffalo, who I had nothing but high hopes for, they stunk up the joint last week. They lost one of their starting receivers. They lost their starting running back. And all of their new additions on defense amounted to nothing as the Jets gashed them for 48 points. So, this is the poo-poo platter of NFL games this week. Actually, there's a worse one next on the list here. But if you're playing Dwayne Bowe, keep him in there. If you're playing Jamal Charles, keep him in there. But other than that, C.J. Spiller, absolutely, you got to start him.
And Stevie Johnson. I guess if you drafted him, you have to start him. I think that he's in that wide receiver 2 range of things, but even he is not. When you said there's worse games out there, you must be talking about Cleveland at Cincinnati.
My condolences go out to our listeners in Ohio. Cleveland they look like the Cleveland Browns is what they look like, and people are tired of them looking like the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. Brandon Weeden looks like he's a turnover machine. But the Bengals, who at least look like an NFL team, got torn apart by the Ravens last week, second highest scoring game of the week put up on the Bengals. So for Cleveland, Trent Richardson is the only start on that entire team. Greg Little is borderline droppable at this point, and you should never have had Brandon Weeden to start with. On the Cincinnati side, this is a week that you can get some production out of your guys. Ben Jarvis Green-Ellis looked okay last week. A.J. Green looked like his old self, although I don't think he's going to produce top 10 wide receiver numbers. But I would start Green. I would start Ben Jarvis Green-Ellis. And I would start the Cincinnati Bengals D because they are going to get a lot of points off turnovers.
Okay. Minnesota at Indianapolis. I'll try not to yawn as you can break this one down.
This is another one. Adrian Peterson is he's Jim Brown and Jesus because he came back from the scrap heap last year. Nobody comes back from an ACL that fast. He came in, had a great day, a pair of touchdowns sitting on my bench, so I was a little upset. But you have to get all day started this week. You can even think about Christian Ponder if you are truly desperate at quarterback. The guy looks like a legit NFL quarterback now. Had a nice 260-yard day last week. Percy Harvin, on the receiving end of those passes. Kyle Rudolph also looking good. Indianapolis has a soft run D, a soft pass D, and they're small. So Adrian Peterson and Percy Harvin are licking their chops. On the Indy side of the ball, it's Reggie Wayne and nobody.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Reggie Wayne it is. All right. Oakland at Miami. There's a
the last one on the buffet of pain here for these 4 games. They're all at 1:00. Luckily, you've got Baltimore, Philadelphia. You've got you've got the Buccaneers, Giants. You've got other games that you can choose from. You don't have to watch Oakland or Miami, but the people in Northern California and Southern Florida do. So Miami's defense is weak at best. Carson Palmer is not startable for fantasy, but Darius Hayward-Bay and Rod Streeter are. As far as the rushing game goes, you have to get Darren McFadden out there and in the game. On the Miami side of the ball, Reggie Bush, and that's it. This is, 3 games in a row where we've had a team and there's exactly one player startable from them. So that just shows you how bad these some of these options are.
All right, well, when we get back, we'll get into a little bit more of the more interesting matchups and, more startable players for us out there. And like I said, we're going to bring Victor on from the Fantasy Player Exchange, and we're going to let him explain to us a little bit more about how you can beat the commish and how you can, have those bragging rights and win a little money in the meantime. So when we come back, that's what we'll get into. And please remember, you are listening to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. And we will be back in 2 minutes.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the Professor,
and me, the Commish, along with fantasy insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at prestigesportsmktg.com. That's prestigesportsmktg.com. Enter promo code ESPN and get 10% off.
Welcome back to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I am your host, JB, the Fantasy Phenom, and with me, as always, is the Professor. And Professor, we have a special guest with us tonight from the Fantasy Player Exchange. We have Victor, and I believe he's going to explain to us a little bit about this contest that we've been mentioning all night and how you can actually, pair up against the commish, beat the commish, and win a little bit of ching in the meantime. So, hey, Victor, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey,
well, JB, we had Victor on Sunday, and we've got this new game, a little collaboration with Fantasy Player Exchange. This Beat the Commish, and like I said, I want the commish to be renamed as the Pinata. Victor, how'd it go last week? How'd the commish do?
Well,
did anybody beat him?
At the bottom of the list this first week. He actually came in next to last.
Bottom of the list.
All right.
Hold on, I need to write all this down for Sunday. Bottom of the list.
Just about everybody beat him. We did have a winner who had the highest percentage over what his score was. And the way it works, I'll explain the game real quick, is each week someone's going to win $50 cash. Okay? And the way they do it is, the way our game is set up is you purchase a player at a given price, And the idea behind it, whatever the profit you make, you divide it by the price you paid, and whoever has the highest percentage wins. It's pretty simple. And the way it works for what we're doing in the Beat the Commish is anybody who has the highest percentage of profit will win $50 a week.
Okay,
yeah, that's
Victor,
sweet for a $2 investment.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a cheap game to play. $2 to go. So if I went in there and I picked a bunch of really cheap guys, and I'm the waiver wire guy. So if I had Randall Cobb, Alshon Jeffrey, and Aldrick Robinson, all of whom nobody had on their rosters, and those guys all came up aces. Do I get a little extra credit for picking for going deep into the roster list there?
You absolutely do, because they would have cost you a lot less, and their return was ridiculous. For instance, I know everybody's been bagging on Fitzpatrick, obviously, after the week he had last week, but think about it. Right now, you're going to get him from dirt. And I forgot who Buffalo's playing this week, but you should have no problem getting – he's not going to get 4 interceptions, you would hope, again this week. So there's a better chance of you getting your return on him real quick just because he's so low right now. You buy him nice and cheap, and, even if he just – throws a touchdown and an interception, you're still going to make money on.
Okay, so
even though we are the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show, your game doesn't limit you to strictly football, right? Explain to us how that works.
Correct.
You can pick players from any active sport right now?
Yes. Our game is a daily game. What it is it's any of the 4 major sports, and right now, obviously, the 2 active are baseball and football. So on a football Sunday, if you have a strong feeling on a pitcher that's pitching that day, you can put that as part of your 5 players that you have. So, for instance, you can have Derek Jeter, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan all on the same team. Now, obviously, all those guys are high value guys, so your return probably wouldn't be as high. But an average player should be about a 20% return on a weekly basis or a daily basis. Excuse me. So, it's really we're definitely unique in the fact that at one point we should have almost all 4 major sports going at once, which come October during the World Series. So that's something that you have nothing like that out there right now.
That is pretty cool. So you grab 5 players, and now do you have to spend your cap? Do you have to have a couple studs in there, or can you play 5 penny stocks?
Well, the way it works is you have to have a minimum of 5 players. You can have 6 or 7, but usually the best thing, the more players you have, the harder the chance will be of you getting your return. But you have to have a minimum of 5 players. You must have 20 shares of the players, and by shares, it's kind of like a stock exchange. That's how we get the return on investment. Would be so. Let's say you bought this past week. We have an internally fantasy player exchange, and I had Matt Ryan. I had bought 4 shares of him. So it all evens out. Each player, you get that return on investment, and then we just add it up and divide it, and then whatever your return on investment is, that's your final number. So let's say, I had Matt Ryan, I had 5 shares of him. I had Julio Jones, I had 4 shares of him. So I lucked out. I got some good players this week. But, it just depends. But I also had some lower guys, and they had a good return on them also. So I ended up winning our little thing that we have for Fantasy Player Exchange. But it's you really don't want to go for those big names all the time because they expect to do well. If you get a Tom Brady, he's already so high. There's only so much you can cap at him. Where you get it, like you said, a penny stock. You get a guy that maybe no one else is really seeing, or if you see there's a defense that a quarterback that you regularly wouldn't start is going to go up against, and you're like, you know what? I have a chance of really. If it was costing you a very minimal amount, it's worth your shot to put a couple shares in there. Because it's not going to cost you the amount. You still be able to get to that the dollar amount that you have to spend is from $1,000 to $1,200.
So I'm going to before we roll away from this, because we have another 8 games to cover before the top of the hour. I'm going to give anybody out there who's playing this game a freebie. Andy Dalton is going up against the Cleveland defense, and while Andy Dalton is not an elite player like Michael Vick, I bet you his stock price is low out there on Fantasy Player Exchange, and he's going to have a nice day, he and A.J. Green, and he's probably a cheap guy to get. So if you want one of your 5 guys, I'm going to give you Andy Dalton right now, as a freebie from the professor.
All right, yeah, and you can take that to the bank, quite literally.
Yeah, there's your penny stock of the week.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I just want to mention that we also have, you can like us on Facebook at Facebook/Fantasy Player Exchange. And thank you very much for having me on, guys.
And what is your website, if you want to plug that out there for the people listening?
Sure. FantasyPlayerExchange.com.
FantasyPlayerExchange.com. Remember it, go there, check it out, and more importantly, beat the commish.
Beat the
commish. For as little as $2, you're going to win $50. And the guy with the highest over, and at the end of the year, the guy who beat him by the biggest margin wins, how much was that at the end of the year?
$1,000.
$1,000. And you're talking for a $2 game.
Correct.
You win $50 a week or $1,000 at the end of the year. Guys, if you're not out there, if you better be going to this website right now and checking this out. Where else can you win $1,000 on a $2 bet? They don't have a game like that in Vegas. And if they did, they'd be flocking out there too. Victor, thank you so much for being on. It was great. We love your site. We love what you're doing, and we love it when the commish winds up at the bottom of the list. So thanks again, and stop on back anytime you want, man. We'd love to have you on the show.
I will. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Vic. Thank you.
Yeah, now I tell you, JP, it's a shame I can't invite all of our listeners to play poker against the commish too, but that's just for a small handful of us to take them to the cleaners at the poker table. So.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, he's got the setup for it too. It's nice when you can actually go to the host's house and take his money, isn't it?
It is a thing of beauty.
Cool.
So,
all right, well, let's get back into week 2.
Yeah, I think we had Arizona and New England up. Is it fair that the Patriots get to play the Cardinals? I don't think that's fair, JP.
Yeah, no. There should be a lot of big days for a lot of big names, and I think a lot of people who were drafted early, first and second rounders, and I think a lot of these people are going to be able to shine this week. Starting with first and foremost, Tom Brady. He's got to be licking his chops right now.
Yeah, Tom Brady, Stephen Ridley, those guys are slam dunks. The big question in this game is, Wes Welker get his mojo back? What do you think? Is he back in the game? Was last week a fluke or a trend?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little concerned. I took him in our Kick-Ass Fantasy Football League. I took him, and I got a whopping 4 points out of him last week. So I, of course, started doing as much research as I can. And according to, the coaches out there, they say it's strictly a week-by-week, game plan that they set up. And they said that, last week that the tight ends were what they thought was going to work best for them. So that's the way that they went. But can you honestly think of a matchup that having, Hernandez and Gronkowski isn't a favorable matchup for you? I mean, most linebackers can't cover these guys. So I'm a little bit worried about Wes Welker's role, but I'm not, by no means am I jumping ship on the guy. It was 1 week. It was one game. But I got to tell you, after seeing him put up 4 points, I was a little bit leery.
Well, the biggest worry, Gronkowski and Hernandez, sure, but Stephen Ridley looks like the real deal. And you know what? If they can run for those 3 yards on third down instead of using the passing game as a run game and throwing one across on a little slant route to Welker, I think you're going to see more. That's where the production is going that Wes Welker used to have. So I think it's the beginning of a trend. I'm dying to see how it plays out over a few weeks. And frankly, the Cardinals' defense is a fun place to rack up some stats. So looking forward to New England players in that game. Next up, we got the Buccaneers against the New York Football Giants. And both of these teams are middle of the pack on both sides of the defensive equation. They have good pass defense, good rush defense, but they're not top 10 or bottom 10 in either. They're just middle of the road, so this comes down to talent. And Doug Martin is the guy who's going to be getting the rock a lot on the Buccaneers side of the ball. Ahmad Bradshaw on the Giants side of the ball. I love both running games in this game.
Yeah, well, you really have to. Both of them are, hard-nosed type guys. They both averaged over 4 yards a carry last week. They, I think Martin outdid. I think Martin, did he break the 100-yard mark last week? If not, he was darn close to it.
Bradshaw
only
close.
had about. Okay. Yeah, and Bradshaw only had about 70 or 80 yards, but, the caveat, he had that touchdown. So you got to love
touchdown. I think he had 93 combined, so didn't quite break the 100, but quite a few receptions, good production on the ground. I think he's a top 15 running back going forward until David Wilson gets over his own fumbleitis.
And with the quarterbacks, Eli's always a start. I know he's not one of the big fancy guys that everybody looks to draft every year. He's not a Breeze. He's not a Brady. But he seems to always put up solid numbers. You know that you're probably going to get somewhere around 30 to 40 touchdowns out of the guy over the course of the year. He's going to give you 200 to 300 yards a game. He's always a solid start. Now,
yeah, and the receivers are both solid too. When you've got Cruz and Nix, this is one of the best duos in the NFL. So Eli's got an easy job with those targets out there.
Now, what about Josh Freeman in this game? Do you like him? Are you jumping back on that bandwagon yet? You know my feelings towards the man, so I don't know. Is Freeman startable?
I like him from an NFL perspective. I don't think he's close to startable for fantasy, and I don't think he'll approach that this year unless it's later in the season. You got to look at Mike Williams. It looks like he has a lot more room with Vincent Jackson opening things up and drawing the number one cornerback. And Jackson had, some okay production, nothing great. So not loving the passing game of the Buccaneers, but the Giants defense can be thrown on. So you want to get those two receivers in. Don't touch Josh Freeman, and you probably want to avoid both defenses for this game.
Okay, well, how about a game where we're loving the running game and we're kind of leery a little bit on the passing game to a game that should produce some really big passing numbers? What do you think of New Orleans at Carolina? How do you like these quarterback matchups?
I like the quarterback matchups, and I like them even more because both of their running games stunk on ice last week. So if either team wants to leave this game with a W, they're going to have to throw the ball. Cam Newton, the darling last year, certainly can produce. He's got Steve Smith and Brandon LaFell. On the other side of the ball, Drew Brees, a lot of production, but a loss to really a not good team in the Washington Redskins. So, they're going to be playing from behind. I think Brees has moved from an elite guy to a guy who's going to get you a bunch of garbage time production. And, that's a different role for him. Still going to produce the same 30 points a week, just going to get it in a different way.
Sure, even last week in a loss, he put up over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, what else can you ask for a guy? I mean, from a fantasy perspective, I don't care if he's winning or losing, as long as he's helping me win. Now, as a New Orleans Saints fan, sure, you might have a few concerns out there.
And don't touch either of these defenses. That's another one to stay away from.
No, this definitely has all the potential to be a good barn burner. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, here's in the next game.
How about Houston? Sure.
Yeah, here's a team that you have to start on defense. Houston playing Jacksonville. Houston's defense is not what it was last year, but it is still very good. And Jacksonville, Blaine Gabbert's a little bit better. Maurice Jones-Drew is back, but Jacksonville's very bad. So start that Houston defense in this one. In fact, is there anybody from Houston that you don't start in this game?
None that I can think of. I mean, if they can get a lead, I can even see Ben Tate getting a little more action than he did last week. I believe he only touched the ball 5 times last week. But as you know, last year we've seen many of games where, Tate went over 100 yards and had a touchdown, especially once they get a comfortable lead. They want to protect that guy, Arian Foster. So once they have this game well at hand, I expect Tate to come into the game and play a much bigger role this week.
I had that dream last week in a couple games. Detroit was one where I thought they were going to run away with the game early, and that didn't happen. But Schaub is a guy that you probably can't start from the Houston offense just because his production isn't at that elite level. He's solid for NFL purposes, though. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, congratulations if you drafted Maurice Jones-Drew in the 3rd round. You got a first-round running back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably opened up the door for you to grab somebody like a a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady or an Arian Foster. But absolutely, by waiting on him, a lot of people were scared to pull that trigger, but the people who did, yeah, their dividends are paying off. I wonder what he was worth in Fantasy Exchange last week.
Big, I'm sure. Well, we're gonna have to put this into high gear with just 5 or 6 minutes left in the show. Next game up, Cowboys at the Seahawks. The Seahawks losing to the Cardinals last week. I don't know if they're quite that bad, but you got to feel pretty good for the purposes of starting your Dallas players this week. It's a tough passing matchup, but if you got DeMarco Murray, get him in the game.
Sure, and even Romo looked strong last week. He tossed the ball over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. DeMarco Murray looked great. And who was that kid? Ovaltine? What was that?
Ovaltine, Ogletree, yeah, something like that. But he came out of nowhere. He's in the Lauren Robinson role, which is a great place to play in Dallas. So he's going to get production all season long. He'll be solid. And it should be a walkover for the Cowboys as they go to 2-0.
Well, so does this mean that Marshawn Lynch will not be able to slip into beast mode? Do you think that they're going to be behind and maybe relying more on Russell Wilson's arm than handing it off to Marshawn Lynch?
They're going to hand it off to Marshawn Lynch just because Russell Wilson's arm isn't quite baked yet. He's not done. So I'd stay away from the Seattle passing game in total.
Okay, and what about Washington at the Rams?
Well, you know what?
A little bit like here.
Yeah, Washington went into play the Saints last week. Came away with an upset win. This week they get one of the worst teams in the NFL in the St. Louis Rams. Jeff Fisher's got them playing a better defense, but Washington should run away with this game. Robert Griffin III should be fantastic. You got Pierre Garçon, who was huge until his foot injury last week, and surprise, surprise. What did we say last week about the Washington running backs? They had Roy Helu at the top of the chart. I said if you drafted Helu, then Evan Royster's going to be the guy. And if you think you outsmarted Shanahan and drafted Helu and Royster, then Alfred Morris would end up being the stud. Well, Alfred Morris was a stud.
Yeah, so, sure was. About 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's fantasy gold right there.
Yeah, and a lot of people tripping over themselves to get him off of the waiver wire. I would love for that rookie or second-year player, rather, to be a star in the NFL, but he's put his fate in the hands of Shanahan again. So that's a tough one.
Most certainly is. And, of course, you have to start Steven Jackson from St. Louis. Other than that, I don't know if I can recommend anybody starting Bradford or Amendola, but, I mean, they're probably your best looks on that team. But Steven Jackson, if you drafted him, get him in your lineup. He is the offense out there.
He is, but he looked like he lost a step last week. I'm a little worried. So I'm hoping he can bounce back against the Redskins this week. Now, next game on the board, this has got JB written all over it.
And it's got me shaking a little bit.
Really?
Not really. I mean, everybody was kind of, I guess every year coming out of the preseason, everybody's expecting big things from the Steelers because they've been a perennial decent team. The shadow of being a New York team, the Jets get a lot of the spotlight, and everybody was down on them this year. Everybody was down. They said they didn't have, if you have a quarterback controversy, you don't have a quarterback. The running game was suffering from last year. There was questions there was questions surrounding this team. And then they came out last week, and they did what they did. I don't think there's a hell of a lot of people out there who were expecting to see the Jets come out and play the way they did last week. Am I truly scared? No, I'm not really scared, but, it's definitely got me thinking, when I saw the schedule early on, I thought that the Jets game, I just marked up that W in the back of my head. I think we're going to have to work for it to pull out a win this week.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I really don't like the Jets, so I'll be rooting right alongside of you in this one. Do you start the Steelers defense against the Jets?
Yeah, I think you do. Well, here's one thing that I can definitely tell you. Steelers don't like losing back-to-back games, number one. After losing the way they did to the team that they lost to last week, the same team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year, now they get to come home for their home opener, and they're playing this other AFC team who just came off of their high, and, they're all feeling pretty good. I think they're all going to get punched in the lips when they step into Pittsburgh next week. I definitely say start the Pittsburgh defense, and I definitely say start anybody you can who's wearing the black and gold. I may be speaking as a fan here, but I also know from experience and from watching this team year after year, you're not going to beat them 2 weeks in a row, especially when they're coming back home.
Well, the Jets have a decent secondary, so you have to be a little worried about whoever draws Darrelle Revis, whether that's Mike Wallace or Antonio Brown. On the Jets side of the ball, as much as they went off last week, I have a hard time recommending that you start anybody unless you want to take a reach for Stephen Hill at wide receiver or Sean Green as a running back too. But it doesn't feel like reality, and I'd have to see it one more time before I can recommend wholeheartedly saying that the Jets are a dominant offense. Is that what the Rex Ryan team's supposed to be? I don't think so.
Well, I think you're going to have to wait till week 3 because you're definitely not going to see it in week 2.
Well, if they get shut down, that'll confirm my worries there. Last of the day games on Sunday, Tennessee goes out to San Diego and plays the Chargers. Chargers offense sputtered in the red zone. They got a bunch of field goals last week, only one touchdown. Tennessee, they got manhandled by the Patriots. So, you have to think that San Diego takes this game. Jake Locker a little dinged up. Phillip Rivers healthy, but dinged up receivers. So I don't know that it's going to be much of an exciting game for fantasy purposes, but it'll be a fun one to watch.
No, it certainly will be, and I think Phillip Rivers, I think he'll bounce back in this one, and I think he'll definitely win in front of the home crowd as well. So I expect big numbers out of Rivers this week. Who he's throwing the ball to, that's a whole other ball of wax. But I expect Malcolm Floyd to have a pretty good. I think he's going to have a good game this week.
Okay, well now we get to the Monday night game. And because we already covered the Sunday night game, and this game has game of the week written all over it, and love this game. If we didn't have the Thursday night game, which we'll get to next, I'd say that this Denver Atlanta game is the marquee game. Peyton Manning looking like the old time Peyton Manning last week. He had his passing game all hitting on all cylinders. Atlanta's passing game, however, looks like elite and world class. Matt Ryan could be the number one quarterback for fantasy by the end of the year. Julio Jones could be the number one wide receiver, and Roddy White could be in the top 10 at wide receiver. So everything is go in Atlanta except for Michael Turner, who looks just plain old this year. So it'll take a little time for Jacquizz Rodgers to take over that position, but love the Atlanta passing game in this game.
Yeah, the passing game you have to like. Michael Turner, I think the burner has officially burned out. I don't know what he's limping on, but it certainly isn't jet fuel anymore. And what a better stage. Peyton Manning, last week he had the big Sunday night game. This week he's coming out Monday night game. He's the face of the NFL, and he was for the longest time. It's great to see him back. And, anybody else taking over the role, a new team, under the lights, back-to-back weeks like that, 2 big spotlighted games. This guy's just cool as a cucumber. You know what? He's gonna go out there. He's gonna do what he's got to do, and you got to love him. He was another guy I vowed I was not going to draft this year. I was going to avoid him like the plague. I was certain that the first game that the Steelers were going to hit him, he was going to break his neck in half again, and that he was going to be gone. But he proved me wrong. He looks good. He looks sharp, and now I kind of wish that he was sitting on my bench.
Yeah, well, that was the problem with him. If you wanted to draft him, you had to draft him as a starter, and if you drafted him as a starter, you had to draft a good backup because of the injury risk. So he was going to cost more than just his own draft pick or salary in an auction. So that's a great game. However, and it's a shame for Denver and Atlanta, but they are not the game of the week. Game of the week is tomorrow night. The Green Bay Packers hosting the Chicago Bears, oldest rivalry in the NFL, and both of these offenses are world-class in 2012. The Packers' offense is a little better, but they don't have a defense. The Bears do have a defense, so this game is a coin flip. Going to be a great one tomorrow night.
And it always is when these two teams meet up, and as is any rivalry game. But with that being said, you take records, you take everything else, you throw it out the window when these two teams meet. You don't know what you're going to get. It could be opened up. It could be a all-out barn burner. It could be a just hard-nosed smash-mouth football game. You know, and it could be a 7-3 game. I don't really see that happening, but if it did, it really wouldn't surprise me all that much. But no, you're right. I think Cutler's going to come out. I think he's going to have a field day through the air. I think Forte and Bush, I can see them both getting into the end zone this week. Brandon Marshall's going to definitely be a strong play. Get him in your lineup. And you just can't say enough about the other side with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, is there anybody that you're not starting on that team?
Well, you have to look at Greg Jennings' health status on on Thursday night to see if he's going to play. If he doesn't play, get James Jones into your lineup stat. He will go into Jennings' spot. Cobb will stay in that, gadget position that he plays. So watch out for Jennings. I think that you have to sit Cedric Benson for this game. The Bears defense is just a little too stout for the Packers to be relying on the run. And frankly, I see this game being a 35-31 sort of affair. So I would sit both defenses. I got everybody going. Cutler, Forte, Bush, Marshall, and Jeffrey on the Bears side. Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and Jermichael Finley on the Green Bay side. It's pretty much play them all.
So Cobb is a start. He's not have no reservations there. You think he's safe to plug right into your lineup this week?
He is a 100% start in PPR, and he's probably your wide receiver 3 for non-PPR. You want to look at who else you have, but he's a top 36 guy in any format. So if you play 3 wide receivers, you have to play him.
All right, sounds good. Well, I think that's going to just about wrap up this week. I'd like to thank all our listeners for listening. I'd like to thank our callers for calling in and being a part of our show. And please continue to what's the Sunday show hours if you'd like to plug our Sunday ESPN get up?
Well, Sunday morning, if you need your last-minute lineup help, you listen to us on ESPN 97.3 if you're in South Jersey on the FM dial, or on the Radio Pup app on your iPhone and Android phones. So you can listen to us nationwide. You can listen to us locally. We'll give you lineup, stardom, sit-em, studs, sleepers, reaches, everything you need to get ready for your Sunday football. We kick off the ESPN Radio Day.
All right. Well, thank everybody for listening to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I want to thank the professor and myself, JB, the Fantasy Phenom. And remember, if you're not playing fantasy football, you're probably spending too much time watching reruns of Days of Our Lives. See you next week right here on Blog Talk Radio.
Do I get to thank myself, JB?
Sure, go ahead. Give yourself a big old warm thank you.
I'd like to thank myself, too. There we go. Okay.
All right, guys. Good night.
Good night.